Hey everybody, I'm Sean Robinson,
I'm Carson Grubaugh.
and we're Living the Line, and today we are joined by the great Nick P. Nick, please tell me how to pronounce your last name. I'm just
Uh,
now realizing I did not ask you.
Pitarra, but people use
Pitarra.
Pitar, and I don't correct them. So either or, however it gets out of your mouth
Pitarra.
works for me.
Pitarra. Use the name that people give you, folks. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I really appreciate you guys having me on. Since we organized this, I've caught a lot of your show. It's high end. I really like it, so I'm enjoying what I've checked out so far. So
Well,
thanks. I
thanks.
really appreciate y'all having me on.
Of
Appreciate
course.
Yeah.
You've got a project coming up right now, which is why I almost called you John when I was introducing you here. Uh, would you tell us a little bit about Ax-Wielder Jon?
Yeah, so Ax-Wielder Jon is my writer artist debut. If you know me at all, I've worked with mainly at Image for my career. I'm probably best known for working co-creating the Manhattan projects with Jonathan Hickman. I've worked with John Layman a little bit. That we saw some pretty good success. The Manhattan projects made the New York Times bestsellers list, and we got nominated for an Eisner for that, so that was fun. And with Ax-Wielder Jon, it's this violent barbarian story that has a lot of meaning to me because I came up with it when we had our first daughter, and my daughter got sick in the hospital, and I was kind of bored and noodling away while she was healing up in the hospital for a couple months, and this kind of character came to me like a little hero to me, and so I was like, I'm gonna basically said I'm gonna write and draw this book no matter what. Started working on it a year and a half ago, and now I'm almost done with the first oversized hardcover. So yeah.
It's fantastic. We got a little preview of it, and man, really striking artwork and uh, some amazing twists and turns. And so the plotting is super sophisticated. This is your first time writing a series from the ground up?
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of these people that watch stuff and have a critique about everything. I'm like, I can't enjoy it. Like, I love taking a story and like,
We
oh,
don't
if
know
they
anything
just,
about that.
if they just would have done this one thing, they could have fixed so much. And me and my wife is a writer too, and so like, she's got a good agent. Her first book hasn't got picked up yet, but she's with a great agency, and she's writing her second book, and so like our whole house is all about story. I draw all day, and she writes all day, and it's a cool. We got a cool thing going, and but when you do that, you kind of you analyze stories so much that you can no longer get swept away. And then the few times you do get swept away, you're like, this guy's a genius, or this girl's a genius who's ever doing it. So yeah, so I've always been critical of story, and I don't know if you learn from doing that, but I think in combination with how I worked with Jonathan Hickman, which was Marvel style, where
Mm.
we kind of sat down and plotted out the turns of Manhattan projects together. I could then, like, the way his mind works, he's kind of a big plotter and thinks about the overall arc of 20 issues or so. And I realize he's the brain of the system, and I'm the arm. I'm down in the panel, like making the noodling marks and living the thing. And there was a combination between the two where the system worked well for the fans. And I had to realize that writing a story, I really had to think about the whole for the first time, and how not how someone is reading the whole. Like, I'm always concerned with how they're following the narrative panel to panel, and not really concerned about like the moment, and not concerned about how they're taking the whole thing in. And this was the first time I had to stop and expand and really look at the project like an object that was going to be consumed instead of a panel to panel moment, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes
Yeah,
sense or not. So
totally
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
And looking at the first 65 pages, which is what we, Carson and I have seen,
Mhm.
I was really impressed by the pacing and how, you managed to introduce elements. I'm gonna say new elements, but they actually don't seem to be new in the sense that they're definitely, immediately tied back to the preceding sections while being surprising. So, we're going to try not to give away too much when we're talking to you here, because I think that a lot of the sort of enjoyment, the pleasure of it, is in seeing how you're gradually unfolding some of the things that are there. So since you've already sort of given us a little bit of insight into your overall structure, uh, thinking you have a definite length in mind too, in terms of
oh
how many of
oh
these you can
yeah,
put out.
yeah. So the first book, the first big story, is going to be told in 3 volumes. They're all going to be like 140-page hardcovers. This book's about 85% ish done now. And I the last 15% I'm going to finish uh, by the end of the campaign in 2 months. So yeah, I know exactly how this thing ends. I know exactly how it starts. I know all the, like, I really was obsessed with the twist. Like I'm seeded all this stuff. You think it's just a barbarian story, but a different note plays. And then every person, every character, to me at least, isn't what they seem on the outside. If I say this about someone and I show it to you, they will be that. But just like in real life, we aren't really our stereotype, where there's always a little more depth. But I try to do that with fun comic book turns as much as possible. So the other characters have cool, what I think are cool twists, and the story gets gradually more batshit. You know, this first one has a lot of heart, at least I heard. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But the other ones start turning into like, it would make, you know, the old heavy metal magazine look like nothing. Like it's going to get really crazy. So if you like the first one, there's no guarantee you'll like the second one, but the story will keep turning on its head. So,
Well, before we get into that, I think complexity, like while you're still talking about Hickman and these structures, that's actually one question I wanted to ask you about, because I've been a fan of yours since the Manhattan Project, and I know I've heard that he's like this structuralist almost when he works, and I was wondering like what you took away from working with him. And like you mentioned that a little bit, but are there any more specifics about where working with him, being the arms, now that you have to be the brain, like was there helpful advice there?
I realized that, I mean, I'm not going to be rude, but I'll be a little rude, right? I realized that we do so much work as comic book artists. We're doing, obviously, you guys probably thought about this a million times. We're doing the set designs, we're doing the character designs, we're doing the not only the acting, but we're doing the ability to deliver the lines. We're doing the like if I say like, or if I say like, that's two different elements, right? So we're doing all this nuanced stuff. We're obviously having the ability to draw. We're doing what I realized before I started writing this was, and this is my kind of rude statement, but Alan Moore, Robert Kirkman, Grant Morrison, Matt Fraction, Brian Michael Bendis, Donnie Cates, and there's probably about 50 other ones. They all have one thing in common, all those pretty good writers. You know what it is?
They can all draw as well, right?
Well, they're all failed comic book artists. So, the way I look at it is, I'm just those guys with a little more drive, right?
Gotcha.
Without as much quitting me. So I figured like if they can do it, we can do it. It's no different. To me, I've worked with Hickman enough to where we get on the phone or we meet for coffee or whatever, and we would spitball ideas. And it's no different than when you're with your friends doing it. And then if you can think about the whole and be like, oh, on number 15, this guy, as soon as he comes out to be this happens. Well, now how do we get there? And I worked Marvel style, so I would get looser and looser scripts kind of, and I would have to draw it. And I love the sequential, like he's got to do this, or if he's thinking he's doing this, and all that acting and stuff. But eventually we got to those points. Well, the interior stuff's carrying the reader, but they're getting this satisfying meal in the whole. And it's really interesting. Like I never thought about life and systems until I really started having my kids. But like Hickman was a collegiate soccer player and he's really good at it. And to play soccer, you've got to see the whole field. You're passing the ball over the thing. But me, I arm wrestle for fun. I'm in these arm wrestling clubs, and arm wrestling, like it's two guys arm wrestling, all the attention's on your hands and arm wrestling. And it's like you're focused in the moment. And I've always been a quick talker and in the moment, and Hickman's a little more reserved. So you can see that's how his mind is kind of structured. And it kind of plays him in the physical world onto the page for us. And that revelation was very interesting. So for Ax-Wielder, I just really had to sit back, and it can't just be me like, oh, this guy's clubbing this guy's head and that head rolls this way and I drew it really cool. And you know what I mean? Like that's so not story. It's in the narrative. It's sequential that way, but it's like, I had to sit back and be like, okay, for these 5 pages of real estate, I need to get to this point, and I want to make this point because in the next 15 pages of real estate, I'm going to take that point and turn it on its head. And I never looked at my own stories that way. I was always like, with the Marvel style stuff, I would be doing stuff, and Hickman's like, what the hell am I going to do with this, dude? Why is a rat bursting out of a jar or something in the background? And what I was doing is undermining story, but Hickman was smart enough to save it. And so with this, since I'm aware of the whole, I'm able to be a little more sophisticated, a little less. I mean, I'm very still like whimsical and a little bit silly with my stuff, but this is my least silly thing I've ever done, if that makes sense.
You know, it's interesting when you're talking about that. It seems like people who have that sort of double threat, triple threat skill set are usually able to people who are successful at that are able to compartmentalize the different jobs. To take your hat off and pass the hat on to the other person. Okay, I've took my artist hat off and I'm putting on my writer hat. Okay, take that off. It's an editor hat because I'm going to clean up this or whatever. And the thing that I noticed about reading the preview edition that you sent us is it was so awesome to see your layouts, just sort of in the middle of these finished pages, because it really gave me a little bit of insight into your process, and realized that part of your process is clearly about that sort of handoff between the different roles. And speaking for myself, I had never really embraced the total handoff. Like, basically the first successful comic I ever made, successful in my meeting my goals, was when I actually embraced the handoff and was like, oh no, I'm not allowed to draw until I figured this thing out, because it's a total waste of my time to draw a 12-hour page that doesn't suit the story, So
that makes complete sense. Go ahead. I don't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no. I guess when did you get the handoff? Like, what are you tag teaming yourself? How do you imagine this transition? Is it more of a wrestling?
The best way I can describe it is it's the idea starts as a cloud, right? And every step I'm taking solidifies it into this hardcover book, right? And so, like, I initially had this vision of the character and what a big bulky character. If you put him next to all the other big bulky characters, he's only taken as one note. He's a drum beat. So, like, how do you soften him? By giving him some juxtaposition with some other visual aesthetics. And how do you make him unique? Give him a facial scar like Two-Face or something, but do something no one's ever done before. It's also a story about, in a way, like, he's this machismo character, and there's broken and his machismo's broken a little bit late in the later volumes. So I like the idea of taking the most manly thing you could and breaking it in half. That's why I wanted to take his, I took his mustache in half. And like, so the idea was like symbolism in a sense, but like silly me, but also like but play it serious. Like, no one will laugh when they see this scar. They'll just be grossed out. Right. And I wanted that. So I knew I needed something there's this, I'm really big into Alan Moore and Hermetics. Have you ever checked any of that stuff out? It's really cool. It's like everything's balanced and blah, blah, blah. But like you can take it not just in your writing or in your day-to-day life, but you can take it in your design where you have this big heavy. Can you put a feminine side to him too? And then all of a sudden it's like a thing. Otherwise it's one note, right? And so with Jon, when you read Jon, you'll discover what that is. But that came to me first, and then scenes started coming to me. And I try to trust that the scenes aren't bullshit, that the scenes then need to be, they're part of the tapestry of the story. And so what I did was I started writing it out. And originally it was a linear story, because I've always, whenever I have tried writing before, it always get complicated. And I was like, this thing happens, this gets stolen, he goes, saves it, either live or die, something at the end. But once I started writing it, it was like, no, this moves over here, this moves over here. And now it's like a big puzzle that I took apart. And now it's, I sit down and draw now, and I spend so much time on the pages that I have time to work on the dialogue. And I really hate exposition in dialogue. So like the whole exercise is getting all the exposition out of dialogue while putting the exposition in the dialogue, like inferring it because it's a joke. Or so like you're feeding it to the reader with like some peanut butter around the medicine or something, right? Like you're tricking them, right? And it's all a big trick and a big puzzle. And sometimes like the version you guys read isn't as good as the newest version, because I had to like take another piece out and write it to where I smoothed it out. And there's some hints at later volumes that I really want to show the readers I know what's going to happen when they reread it. And so like I polished that up, and now I'm like all tickled about it. But even when you read it, it's not going to read any different, but it'll mean something later to the whole piece of the orchestra, whatever you want to call it, the symphony we're putting together. But it's very much like a cloud, and every day you're working, it's becoming more solid. I needed to give myself some limitations, so I tried to do the 3-panel tiers. I did that for a reason, because I wanted for it to fit on the screen in case I was gonna like let it go to like a web comic first or later volumes. When the later volumes are out and I need to put this out to promote it, maybe I'll do that. But also each page I've done on its own, each panel I've done on its own 11 by 17 board. So each page is like 33 inches high by 17 inches wide, not quite 33
Jesus.
because it doesn't fill up that way. So that's what I've been doing. And so I was like, okay, now I know my structure of what I can do with my pacing. And now I need to go pace it out. And I really love there's a guy named Urasawa who did Pluto. Have you guys ever read him?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
And I like, the only thing I don't like about this is I don't quite have the space. Like I deliver the line, I listen to the line, I say it, like that gives me like chills.
Yeah.
I love that kind of decompressed storytelling. I'm not able to do that as well. If you looked at what I've got for the hardcover, it's probably only a great setup, right, for what's going to come next. But it's the size of a hardcover. If I was using 6-panel grids, I probably could have done it in a 48-page one shot, but instead it's this big airier thing. The dialogue isn't as much as it would be crammed. So in a way it does breathe and it is decompressed, but I don't get the little character moments that I absolutely love in comic books. So if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It feels very international in both the pacing and the sort of surface of the art. I was going to ask you to sort of shotgun some influences at us, but it's interesting to see to now I don't know I don't know if you're around the same age as us, Nick, but I'm 42 and Carson's 40, and it seems like we're sort of a generation of cartoonists who have grown up with a ton of sort of exterior input,
Oh yeah. I'm actually 39 and I'm about to turn 40. I was going to say, Carson, you said you went to the Kubrick School in 2000. My best friend went there at the time. I actually drove up with him at the time. And so y'all, in 2000.
What was his name?
Graduated. His name is Isaac Martis. He was from Houston. I don't know if you know him or not.
Yeah,
but,
I don't know.
Yeah. So, but I know like Ed Piskar was there. There was a guy named David Nakayama that's successful now that was there. There's a guy named Alex Sanchez that was really good that was there. There's a couple different guys, but in 2000, I didn't get to go to the school. I just got to visit and I would do the assignments. And then in 2003, before he graduated, I went up there and lived and just did like every time the people that I lived with came home from school, I would just do their assignments for them and work.
Oh,
that was my little,
funny.
I got to moonlight as a Kubrick School kid for like 3 months. So that was fun. But as far as influences go, my number one, I did not read or draw comic books until I was 17. I met that kid that was going to go to the Kubrick School. I got kicked out of a class for not doing my work, and they put me in a remedial reading class, but I could read. And so like in that class, there was nothing to do. And there was a kid that was drawing all day. He was getting bad grades because he was drawing. And he said he was going to the school to draw. And it was like a magic trick, right? He was drawing out of his head. And I was like, well, you could draw to your head. And I was blown away. And so we just sat in that class, started drawing, and I started getting hooked on it, And I had always been able to move shapes around a little bit on my own, like with my own little noodling, but I didn't really take drawing seriously. And I went to the comic shop, and he loved the Kuberts and a lot of I call them romanticized artists, like Jim Lee. They're romanticized in the sense like if Batman's angry, he'll look sleek and off all the fade lines, and he'll put his leg up like the Captain Morgan pose, and he's angry. But the second I picked up the Authority, when, the Midnighter, who's a Batman analog, when he's angry, he just slightly turns his head, right? And that's Frank Quietly when he's drawing, and the guys that are big and strong are kind of fat, like the big, strong guys you see at the gym. And I was like, whoa, like what's this guy about to do? And all of a sudden I'm reading comic books, and I'm like, this is amazing. Of course, not that many people are that good, because I would try to search more stuff. And then that kind of got me hooked. And then I believed his cartooning. I could see his forums at the time. Vin wasn't the big dog at the time. Like the Authority hadn't quite like blowed up real big yet. But he was so good to me. And I went to Kubrick School, and I was like, look at this guy. And they would all be like, that guy draws like everyone's made of mashed potatoes, dude. What are you doing? And I was like, dude, this guy's the best. And then I love this stuff, dude. I started working, and like so the second I found out that you can buy art on 11 by 17 board, I wanted to see it. So I would like work at a fast food place, save up my money, and I bought his originals, which is how I'm funding Ax-Wielder Jon now. So I did good by trading any art I had or whatever, and I'd always get Quietly art. So I built up a pretty decent collection in 20 years. And luckily he was like the nicest guy and the one of the, I couldn't be happier with the hero that I've had. And since then I found Jeff Darrow, of course, Mobius, of course,
Right.
all those guys. I got all their books. I got all their many different versions of their books, you know, like, there's a lot of guys. I love Milo Manara, I think is a genius. I was talking to Carson before we started, and I really like this guy, Jason, and he's this pared down cartoonist. He's a fan of graphics books. He did I Killed Adolf Hitler.
Oh, yeah, Jason.
Yeah, I love that he's taking like there's and there's two different types of mindsets, right? He's pared everyone down to an icon, so you're just listening to the story. It's that Scott McCloud thing where when he starts drawing himself realistically, you're no longer paying attention. You're paying attention to the messenger, not the message. Well, I love the messenger. I love the fucking messenger, right? Like I love that. But then I completely understand, like because I have a background in I do have a background in teaching. I have a degree in art education. So like, I think about this stuff all the time, but it's like the Walmart smiley face is a smiley face to anyone on the planet. If you put my smiley face up there, I look like your fat uncle or whatever, and your message is delayed, right? Well, with Quietly, you're getting the aesthetic first. I like any cartoonist that has their own language, and that's like stick figures for kids. And a good example is like a kid. This is the problem with teaching children is like you take their honest hand, and the second they can make a comic book in that honest hand, and it'll read like it's a vehicle for a story. It's its own language. But the second they draw something realistically from life or trace something, all the adults are like, "This is amazing! This is amazing!" So what you do is you send that little kid on the devastating path of craft instead of just being honest to their own voice, you know. And it's so interesting to me. So I'm addicted to craft, you know, like, but I'm trying to learn my own language. I'm clearly a product not too far from the tree of my influences, you know. So
But Nick, I have to admit, I'm also a art education degree holder.
oh yeah,
Which meant I made it through 5 years of teaching high school art, and I remember that feeling of looking at I taught mostly intro to art, so I would teach between 3 and 5 classes of intro to art a day, and I remember that feeling of going into life drawing near the end of the semester and watching this girl, one particular girl, I remember watching her draw and seeing this wonderful, totally unnaturalistic image that she made, which is essentially like her private shorthand cartoon image of the model in the approximate pose of the model, and just thinking, this is so much cooler than the thing I'm going to teach her how to draw now.
yeah.
Like
I
the thing
hate
she's doing
it
right now is so much. It was worth more to me than the thing that I could help her make, and it was painful for me to like, okay, well, let's talk about proportion. It's a weird thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I love the guys that are doing both. Like I think like I'm rep by Felix Comic Art. Like I was the first artist to go with Felix and those crew of guys. But I really have a attraction to the Inky Knuckle guys because they're a little bit more of their own language. They have like that raw indie thing, but they're doing it at a polish. And I love when those two are meeting. I think that's where some of the best comics. Now that doesn't mean it's commercial Marvel or DC, but it's there's like a love of craft and a firm grip on whatever they're doing in an honest way. And I think that's the sweet spot for me, for the guys I like. But I mean, obviously a lot of the Felix guys are great, but some of those guys are so good. It's like so far down the path of like, I can't go far in the craft for that. You know, there's a point where you just got to draw your lumpy mashed potato people and roll, you know?
You
got anything to say about this, Carson? I feel like I'm
yeah, I know I cut you off. I'm sorry about that.
Oh,
I told you
no,
guys I yap too much.
No, I mean, you guys covered it. I was just going to agree that, I mean, that's what I do for a living. I teach, and I was about 2-3 semesters in before I realized I come in saying I'm here to teach you how to see, like that's what you say in a drawing class, or how to think about seeing. And that's like in an effort to draw realistically, usually in a drawing 101 class. And I learned after a couple of semesters that I was kind of ruining them in a way. Like seeing realistically is seeing the world in a use value way. which is that cartoon. Like, how do I use it? It's a rectangle and a circle to open. I think we talked about this on the channel before. Yeah, so that cartoon brain thing, which I was always so visually, outside visually and observing, that it took me a long time, and I had to learn from my students that the way they were seeing the world in the cartoon brain is much more realistic. And yeah,
in the sense of
and
being
the
linked
kids,
to it, to the usage of the object, like looking at a coffee cup and seeing it for its utility, enables you to
Yeah.
draw it like a cartoon. Jeff Keane, God rest his soul. No, sorry, his dad. See, this is what happens when you get old. Bill Keane, drawing the Family Circus, never drew a coffee mug that looked like a coffee mug his entire life, right? Every single one of them is the use of it. A kid touches a coffee mug and it's got a little thing on the side of it and a little circle on the top and a little bit of steam coming out, right?
yeah, and it's flat on the bottom because that it sets on a table. You don't see the perspective of the curvature, and it's just a circle on top because that's where you get the coffee out of. And
Right.
yeah, I think there's something about, like, what you're saying, Nick, is the really good stuff somehow gets all of the facility and the technique of someone who's really good, but still communicates in that use value way somehow. Because I'll see people who go way too far down the road to absolute integrity to the image, and you can't tell what it is almost. And
you were
they've
talking
forgotten
about
it.
you were talking about Travis Charest on the Matt Lesniewski one, and Matt is a guy who I think is doing it really well. Troy Nixie, a couple of those guys that they have, Matt Allison, those are some of the guys that they rep, where I think they're doing like their own thing and they have their own language, but they're doing it at a high craft level. And but like you were talking about, like Travis taking it too far, where it looks like just almost it's so good it's like photos now. One of you guys had mentioned something like that. Do you remember that or no? Or if you didn't scrub it, now scrub this. But I'm not crap talking it, but it's like it's so good and it's lit. Everything is so perfect that it's lost a little of the magic of like the early Wildcat stuff, or the later Wildcat stuff, where it was like really, that was like super incredible, and the mark making was incredible, and it still felt very comic booky. But some of the new stuff is so polished that it's like, I don't know if you've seen those new ones that Mark Millar showed for his.
I don't like that stuff.
Yeah,
it just feels like everybody's else's stuff now. Like, it used to be so detailed and so realistic, but it was very peculiar and particular, and like everyone was chasing him. And then he went and did that Meta Baron stuff, which was like, what, like, and yeah, the stuff now, it's like he's using a computer, and I think there's too many guys who took what he did and figured out how to do it faster than him.
Well, I don't think, for the record, no one's figured out how to do how cool that stuff was. Everyone that tries to do it, just like me with Frank Quietly, the gap between Quietly and the rest, and the gap between Charest and the rest is a huge void. They can kind of aesthetically get there, but it's not.
Yeah,
that's the coolest stuff.
That 6 issues of Wildcats when they came back to it. It was cool stuff. But yeah, he polished it up way too much.
We should say the reason we're hitting this, I think, with Ax-Wielder Jon, bringing it back in, Ax-Wielder Jon, 2 weeks from now, Kickstarter. The reason that we're kind of bringing it back to that is because you were really hitting a really interesting sweet spot to me. Like you said, you've got these like very imaginative figures, designed in a very distinctive, animator, I would say, sense of the word, where you could tell all of them apart from their silhouettes, and they've got all these distinctive features and everything like that. And then you're drawing them in a way that suggests, detail and abundance of interlocking forms and such, that is suggestive of sort of. So realism is not the word. That's the thing that I'm getting to. You've got this sophistication to the imagery that is sort of overlaid on your cartoonist sensibilities, and it seems like that's a really sweet spot where just by the way that you're making the image, it's like distinctive to comics. You're not going to make an animation that looks anything like this. You're not going to film something that looks like this. You've hit something really distinctive and unique.
The silhouette thing's interesting. I've been reading these 3D Total books, and they're all by like storyboard guys, and they're by character animators. And my very first comic was a huge, I think the Red Wing book I did with Hickman, my first book I ever drew, all the character silhouettes were the same. And then on Manhattan Projects, I was like never again. Like, I'm going to black out these characters and you're going to tell them apart, just like the Simpsons characters. So on this, like, I almost draw, before I draw my figures now, I just draw like the shadow of the figure, and I'll go in and figure out, because like this, if this was all blacked in, I could find it a lot easier, you know, turning it blue line and then inking it, than if I was just building it from the circles here, where I used to be an interior guy and draw from the inside out, you know, pull out all the pieces. Now I'm looking at the whole a lot more of the figures too. So I'm glad that you noticed some of that. And even in the layouts of the panels, like making sure the head is making an interesting shape when they're leaning over. You still got to go in and make it like awesome, you know?
Right.
But like, so even that, like that figure there that the mouse is over, like that other hand probably needs to break out to really nail it, you know? And I'm always thinking in those terms.
Yeah, that's something
If
that
that makes sense.
there's a hyper aware, you know, animators in the 30s and 40s and 50s were hyper aware of those principles as unifying principles of design. That arm out is a perfect example. You got the one totally clear of the body, so you are already communicating the pose. But yeah, the one that's like interior and like this is not communicating as readily, right?
Yep.
Just popping that out and having a little bit more of that negative space already gives you that thing. But it's funny how you, unless I'm missing something, this is like a lost information. Like, you know, it's like,
oh, it's crazy. Like it's weird. We'll get this information like in art school and stuff, but it takes us like working for 10 years to have all that basic information comes in, like overlap for depth, right? And then like me putting my finger here makes this a way more dynamic shot than me just drawing this every time. And then all of a sudden, but yeah, exactly. But what we're doing is now you guys have all developed our drawing to a professional level, and now we're going back and remember that the basics are actually the fundamentals. Like if you do it and you draw it like shit, no one's going to care really. But if you do it and you finish it with hyper detail or great lighting or whatever we do well, then it brings it to that other level. Those core basic things we learn in art school, they are kind of important, even though you're just like, I just want to draw cooler, I just want to draw more realistically. We're down the path of craft so far that we forget the basic things. And like having that come back and using those, like it's a big conversation I have with my other comic book artist friends, is like, it's weird how the basics come back, like silhouette. Like I literally was working in comics for 2 or 3 years before I realized all my figures sucked. And it doesn't matter how well you draw them, if they all read like this, if your punch is in the middle of your chest, it doesn't read, you know, it doesn't read. Like the first thing we see is the outside shape, I guess, because of evolution or whatever you want to call it, you know? And so like, why not honor that? And then it gives you another thing to play with, you know? So
I should say, I'm not putting myself in the same category as you, Nick, by the way. I have two separate skill sets, one which is observational and one which is cartoony, and there's a giant gulf between them. And I'm not going to put myself in the same category as you. I just thinking about some of the same things, and when I see, you know,
I honestly don't know what I'm doing with art, dude. I'm just trying to make it look. For the first time in my life, I know that it needs to look cool, and I've always drawn silly and idiosyncratic and weird, and I want it to look like a cool drawing for the first time, and it's what I've been trying to do. So like, I think the little bit of buzz about Ax-Wielder so far, when people have seen it, they think, oh, this looks cool, you know? And I think I'm getting there, you know. I want it to, this is like a cool barbarian man. It's supposed to be cool. He's not supposed to be like picking his ass and too fat and whatever I usually draw, you know? So, but I do like stories that are, you know, picking your ass and being too fat, you know, but this is different, you know?
Well, but that's one of the successes of the book, I think, is that you have the stuff like this where it's the big barbarian guy being a badass, and then you have these like tender moments with the kid, or you'll have like these bureaucratic moments with these characters just walking around and conversing, like almost a satire of bureaucracy. And that's what I found super impressive about the book, is when you see it advertised, you think, well, this is just going to be like this gigantic barbarian cut loose hack and slash, and you start reading it, it's like, wow, you know, yeah, this is all of that. But as it unfolds, I was really impressed that it was like trifold between the bureaucratic satire, and then you said a lot of people have told you that this book has like heart, and that was really true. And I think that's, you know, what really puts the book over the top for me. And I think that's how your artwork is functioning too. You talked earlier about having the narrative have space and not over explain things. And your art is like that too. I mean, it's really, you said the narrative could be airy. Your art is really airy, but somehow also just like packed with detail. It's a really
I've
fascinating balance.
been obsessed with balance in a lot of things. One with the story. If he was just a barbarian cutting stuff up, it's just a drum beat, right? Like you need a softness, the harmony or whatever, the melody, whatever, with that to make a musical note, right? And then the same thing, like if the detail's packed here, but I'm leaving negative space for the first time in my career, it reads a lot better and it's more absorbable than if it was just, if it's this isn't as good as just this, you know, and with something to the side. And I've been thinking about that in terms of everything, you know, with the pacing of the story, with the character designs. If I can give a different light, if I can say one thing about a character, show you that thing, and then pull that mask off and surprise you maybe. And then you realize everything I was doing was a mask or something. And I what I've been obsessed with storytelling wise, no stories are that good. It's all about how you put the pieces in and deliver the information in, or like the order you give them in the information is actually what's interesting, not the stories. Like if I tell you this elevator pitch, it's not that great. But if I give you this story in the right, you know, fragments of information to where it's building something in your head and then taking that away from you and giving you something else. And then when you read it, you can read it in a second light. Then I've done something I think not incredible, but at least worthy of saying I'm a writer, maybe, you know, because I don't know if I am yet. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's not like techno. It's not just pounding out at you with the drop and then back at it. You really have this flow between these sections, like three kind of main sections that you go back and forth between, and they're kind of crescendoing up together, and then you get some like letdowns again, like so it's a really interesting flow. That's what I was most impressed by, but besides just like holy shit, you know, we love Nick's art and always have.
Yeah, can we hit that that fight page one more time? It's the first page that you showed us just a minute ago.
He's pounding the guy's head into the ground,
mounting him on there. Yeah, yeah, two back from that. This is oh well, he was mounting on top of the.
Yeah, it's a few back.
I'm sorry, there it is. Yeah, that middle panel is a fantastic example of what we were talking about with the animation and sort of a silhouette approach to it, where you can see the hand coming up across the figure, and basically, you know, we're reading the image so well, even on the screen at this resolution, you know, postage stamp size, and just having that hand extend out and all those fingers splayed out like that. I don't know, that when you were passing by that was just really jumping out at me as a fantastic example of that sort of compositional approach that you've got.
Yeah, I mean, it's also crazy that I'm able to work a little faster because I'm leaving a little more negative space. I would usually go back and take that detail and drive it all the way back, figure out the background design of the rocks and deal with all that. But it reads fine once you put the lettering on and it's colored, it looks good. It's the first time I'm trying to limit myself. But then when I do spend my time on it, you know, actually draw the figure under that cape and then lay the cape down, you know, and then how do you do that, you know, and where's legs falling? You know, I'm not saying it's good. I don't think that thing is, it's not, I think those feet are probably wrong now that I'm looking at it, you know, nothing's perfect, but I am trying my best, you know, and I really wanted to, like, the one thing you need to break in as a writer in comics is to find a good artist. And I'm not saying I'm good, but I'm a published artist. It would cost me, you know, probably at least $300 a page to work with me. I get to work with me for free, you know.
Yeah.
I can launch my writer's career. I think I draw good enough to launch my own writer's career is what I think. Now, I'm not saying it's good, but that's the way I kind of looked at it, you know?
Yeah, that's fantastic. Have you, okay, so I have you read any Yukito Kishiro? Like, you know, do you got?
No. I know Hickman's a big fan. We went to Japan a couple of years ago, or probably 5 years ago. I went with Daniel Warren Johnson, James Herron, Nick Dragata, a lot of great Felix comic artist guys. But all that stuff that I brought back is in Japanese. So I have this stuff, but I haven't read it. The ones that are translated that I'm like very generic. I like Akira. I like the Ito guy. I love the Tekken Concrete Black and White guy,
Yeah.
Matsumoto,
Right.
Taiyo Matsumoto.
That
That guy's a guy who's doing like raw indie cartooning, but kind of doing manga, like kind of in between European, and that's the stuff that speaks to me the most. Like I love that. There's another guy that everyone freaks out about. I don't know his name, and it's only in Japanese, and he's really good. He's like too sophisticated for me. I wish I could think of his name. I know he's got like a cheerleader book, and he's got a couple other ones. I'll look it up when we're done and I'll send it to you guys. But I haven't read a whole lot. The thing I don't like about manga in general is the overacting is culturally based, and it takes me out. That's why I really like Urasawa, because Urasawa, at least with Pluto, it was like he was almost Americanizing it or something. I don't know if that was the case, but he wasn't going like big ham with the overacting. It was so subtle. And dude, if you do that in the comics, man, you got my heart, man. That's it. I love that stuff, So yeah, I don't know if it influences me or not. But I do think it's really cool new comics, because after a while you've kind of read everything, and to open up a whole new genre that keeps giving with manga is pretty cool. So
yeah, I was just curious that that particular book, Alita, seemed like it's got a lot of resonance with Ax-Wielder Jon in the sense of the sort of hard soft combination. And in the case of Alita, it carries over to the main character as well as the environment, where you've got these sort of hard soft combinations. Like I said, we're not going to talk too much about the Ax-Wielder Jon, give away too much, but that's why I was, there's some visual comparability as well.
I'll definitely I might have those volumes. If they're in English, I'll definitely buy them when we get off and read them, because I'm always looking for new stuff to read. I'm bad about buying a bunch of stuff and not reading it, but that's probably my biggest problem. But when I get into something, I really get into it. Like I read over and over and analyze it to the nth degree. So.
Well, the international thing is really interesting, because there's just it's for the longest time, there was nothing available in translation, and if you were growing up as a comics fan in the 70s or something, I mean, your options were until Metal Hurlant got some heavy metal translation, until Studio Proteus started putting stuff out with Eclipse of Japanese stuff. It was like not available, right? But all three of us have had the opportunity of, in those formative years, of actually seeing things from a lot of different artists, and who sort of span a lot of different things. It seems like there's sort of a burgeoning, like, no holds barred international style that is a little bit more like take what you will and do what you will with it.
Yeah.
To like please draw like X for me.
Yeah, it's like and it's interesting. Like I'm glad some of the big two are like warming up to all this stuff, but like obviously got guys like James Herron. Like it used to just be like Joe Mad was the kind of manga influence guy, right? And now it's like everybody, and they're still in the Zipatone, they're still in the speed lines, they're still in the everything. And it's a whirlwind. I'm more on the European tree as far as aesthetically goes, but right. I'll steal that all day, And I used to really love, I still do. There's a guy named Seth Fisher who passed away. I don't know if you know his work.
Yeah.
Because it's amazing. It's like, it's so high end. He's a huge Mobius guy, but like very blocky, very kind of blocky and cool. He did a story called Batman Snow and Vertigo Tokyo Pop or something like that. And I own some original art from him too. And he
Did
passed
you get
away.
his Green Lantern, the Will
Oh
World?
yeah, Will World. Yeah. I got actually an original from that too. I love his stuff, and he's amazing. I'm actually going to do a lithograph. His brother's a lithographer, and he's going to do a nice print of Ax-Wielder for me. So that's kind of cool, getting to work with his family. But he's really cool, and he has like a lot of overt charm to his stuff, right? Like everyone's like taking a little piece of manga and throwing a little Kirby in, or throwing a little this in. And like Seth took a little bit of the European aesthetic, but you could see his quirky nature in there too. And I think that's where you're putting yourself, your truth, whatever you want to call that, and your influence, and trying to roll them into one voice. I think that's the goal. I mean, I hope I can get there one day. I don't think I am, but yeah, watching the smorgasbord of, especially with Instagram and everyone influencing everyone, like James with Ultra Mega would show his James Herron. he would show his pinups off and stuff sometimes, and like some guys that working at Marvel would do like that technique before his book is out, you know, because it's such quick information now, right? There's so much like stuff out there that people are absorbing it so quickly, you know. It's interesting, you know, and it's a true free for all, you know.
Yeah,
He's
it's
a
hard to integrate
badass
it all,
though.
right?
It's hard not to want to swipe from him. From
Oh
Harry.
yeah,
He's
yeah.
a savage.
He's good, and he's got like that big Kirby energy, but with manga aesthetics, and it's his own thing. And it's like I got him to do the cover. I did a book called Leviathan, and he's the first guy I got to do the cover. I got him and then Trad Moore, which are probably my two favorite young guys. I know I talked
Trad
about.
Moore is like,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah, he's like a
I don't
ninja.
even know where the hell he's pulling from. It's like he's got so many things. Actually, this page that we were just looking at here, I see some of the like Trad Moore. Like this is the type of stuff he'll do too, with the like splitting up the ground into
Oh
like
yeah, yeah.
tiles and stuff to show motion.
Yeah, his stuff is genius. I think from Trad, what I really like is the volume of his characters. I would say that's definitely something that, thinking about Trad or James, like they have incredible volume, and it's more than just shrinking the heads. It's getting the silhouette right, the line of action right. It's all back to the basics again. But there's something powerful about their work, you know. But obviously you go in and it's highly skilled too, craft wise. But just the shapes and the movement is it's inspirational. You know, I love those guys' stuff.
So Nick, the pages that are already colored for Ax-Wielder Jon, who's the colorist on this? And you know, you got a really nice, like sophisticated, you know, minimalist palette that seems like communicates really well and lets your art, you know, breathe. Really unusual to see. Seems like most of the time people are like, trowel it on, guys. You know? Okay.
Yeah, no, like it's Mike Garland, and he took over on the end of Manhattan projects for me, and we were working together. And if like you zoom in on that page and check out the cuts, like I'm obsessed with the cuts, because cuts define. And I know that's not high res either, but the bottom face, the if you go and zoom in on that, like the way those cuts on that bottom face are defining the form, you know. And so like I really am obsessed with getting, like I really love 3-cut cell shading, sometimes 4-cut cell shading. It's a lot of work if you're doing a high detailed guy, right? Because he might be making 3 marks for every 1 mark I make. But I do admire that a lot. And Mike Garland's very aware of form. He can draw, like finding a colorist that can draw is really good. And we talked about the palettes, and I wanted the scenes to have their own color. You know, like this is a dark green scene. Some of the other ones are like the purple, we call it the purple fight scene, or the blue intro pages. And I wanted to make it like feel like distinct, excuse me, distinct moments, you know. And a really big influence of that was, I mean, obviously you can't mimic this, but the Carl Kessel Isola book. Have you guys checked that out? It's
Which
like,
one is it?
It's called Isola, Isola.
Oh,
and it's so beautiful, man. It's like painfully beautiful. It's so good. But you can flip to any scene, and it's like, that's the green jungle scene. That's this, and it doesn't mean it's all green. It just means that you're looking and you're so immersed in that environment that these greens are radiating or these purples are radiating. And I don't think I'm good enough to get it there. Mike, you can't polish a turd, Mike, you know, Mike Garland. But like, yeah, so like these are the purple ones, right? And so like this was like, I was very aware that I wanted these to look a little more purple or a little whatever. So and we kind of do that throughout when we're picking our, and I think the early pages are blue, and then some of the middle pages aren't colored yet. But yeah, so
you have that in mind while you're drawing?
When I draw stuff, I think for the first time I've thought about color a little more. Sometimes like Mike wants me to send him a palette. Sometimes he wants to do his own thing. But when I started this project specifically, I knew like if those pages would have came back all blue, I would have been like, and they were done the same way, then we would have had the blue fight scene page, right? Because the blood against the blue would have been cool. But I knew that the first scene was at night, and so those were going to be blue. So I knew they couldn't be blue. But I don't put that much thought into it. Like if it's an angry page, it needs to be red or something. I'm not that deep into it. I just knew I wanted the scenes to feel different. And I wasn't always, some of my backgrounds are open, so the color was going to hold and glue a lot of those scenes together. So I just knew that we needed to pick our palettes for each scene before Mike started coloring. And that's what I'm trying to do. Some days I'm too far behind to stop and do it and Mike takes over. But I really want the product to look like its own cinematic universe. Not that I'm trying to make it a movie or anything, but I want it to feel that way when you're reading the thing. So
yeah, it's funny the amount of it's such a sleek look to have those hard cuts like that, like you're saying, like a cell painted animation or something like that. And it seems like people just can't resist the temptation to use those burn dodge tools and turn everything.
Oh
into,
God,
you know, everything is rolling off. Carson and I have called it doorknob coloring.
No, that's funny because I hate that so much. If you guys ever get the chance, I'll tell you the best thing that's ever colored. It's one panel. Me and Ramon Villalobos and a couple of Quietly guys talk about it.
He's really good too.
But Quietly does this. He's great. The Quietly does a Madman page that he colors himself, and it's a Madman sketch where he's like it's a sketch to start out, and then Quietly shows him talking. He's talking to a therapist, and he's saying like, I feel like someone's watching me. But it's like quietly writing it and breaking the fourth wall. Well, the panel solidifies and Quietly does cell shading for the first time himself. Like he color, and the cuts are like incredible. And they're only two or three cuts. And it's the middle panel of his Madman sequential, if anyone wants to look it up. But it's really nice. There it is. So if you scroll down in the middle panel, that is how everything should be colored. That in the bottom panel. If you look at that, like it's so deceptive. Like look at Madman's leg. There's actually no line there. He's just drawing the wrinkles in the color. That's the highest. To me, that's so sophisticated and not airbrushed at all. It's just, it's lovely. It's so good. There's no accidents. He's so aware of form down to the crevices that you can study him for a lifetime and you'll get better, but you'll never catch him. He's so good to me.
I was always a fan of cut. Like the first time I remember seeing that, because I grew up on the Image doorknob stuff, and we always go back to like Wetworks. Is like, I love that book, but that was the book that was made for doorknob coloring. So I thought it was the coolest thing. The first time I remember seeing it was in Ed McGuinness's run on Mr. Majestic from Wildstorm. I don't know if you ever saw that. And the other guy was Jason Pearson on Body Bags, and he had that cut. And it was just like, oh yeah, this is so much better. And I've always liked it. And it was always a struggle because I always worked more realistically too, but I've been pretty insistent on having that style. I think it's even more like the more realistic you get, actually, the more you have to flatten your colors out. And I see a lot of Marvel like over colors, like these Travis Charest kind of guys. They'll go in and like paint over top of them. It's like, you already got a whole fucking ink wash like painting. Why are you painting on top of it? So
no, I really am not a fan of that airbrush stuff. I mean, I can talk about it forever, but I think it's all about the integrity of line. Like I'm obsessed with line quality and stuff. And when I collect art, I want to get something close to the original, but it enhances it, right? And the way you enhance it is you pick colors that don't over dominate, don't oversaturate. I mean, like Brandon Graham is probably the minimalist version of this style, right? Mm-hmm. Where it's like really pastels. Like I think that's like a really safe, pretty place to be. Like that Quietly version's got richer colors and the forms can kind of still hold. But somewhere in between that range is my sweet spot in between those two styles. And it's really kind of like the Mobius, coloring aesthetic for the most part. Although he's been airbrushed before too. If you ever seen some of those terrible reprints that they've done.
Yeah, we looked at that when Sean had never read the Ink All before, and we did an episode on that, and he read it with the proper coloring. And mid episode, I showed him one of the reprints, and his live reaction to that was so perfect because it was just.
I felt like I was in a YouTube reaction video. We were gonna get like a little corner bullet of me just Sean reacts.
It was so spot on.
It's devastating to the artwork, right? Because the line art is not the same as a doorknob. I mean, line art is not, is not conducive to being colored as if there's three different light sources that all cast a gradation. I mean, even I'm looking at my own face right now, in this terrible camera that I'm using and with the terrible light situation, and there's a clear cut. The way that my brain is interpreting my postage stamp size face right now when I'm looking, is that I've got essentially like three different colors, through for the entirety of my face. So why give it that gradation? I think it's scary to just stay with the thing that you made. I think that like a firm, cut line is very similar to the ink line that you put down. And so like you drew the damn line. There's your ink line, guys.
Yeah. I think the scariness. I think if I'm going to assume anything about colorists that overuses that technique, it's that they're not aware of the form, like that line that's hitting like my nose here or the side of your face specifically,
Right.
and yours, because you got a harder cut. You are defining the form there, and if there is no contour, then they are going to make the cut that defines the form. And that's why I say Mike Garland's great, because he draws too. And so he can make confident cuts. And when I say confident, I don't mean he's going over the top. I mean, they're subtle, he's aware of the form and he makes his mark, and then he, kind of adds some volume to what's there, which is, I think, adding something to the piece versus, destroying the line art or treating it like, I guess, say a doorknob's I never heard that, but it's good. The doorknob coloring is not for me. Not for me.
Thank goodness.
We were just texting one day about it, and I was just all of a sudden like, well, when Photoshop came into fruition, there's a tendency of any visual visual stuff. Anytime something becomes available that was difficult to do before, all of a sudden the market is completely saturated with people doing the thing that was once expensive to do, And so making a gradation was difficult to do before the advent of the airbrush. And as soon as there's an airbrush, everybody does it. And as soon as there's a digital airbrush, everybody does it. But the thing that it's actually appropriate for is a round metal surface. So unless everything is made of round, a curved metal surface, then, lay off, fellas.
Yeah, I agree.
And I'm also really admiring the way that he is handling the backgrounds. Yeah, because
fantastic.
It's still like cuts, but it's like textured. So it feels a bit more gradienty, but it's not. And that's something that I'm really admiring. The other person that I saw that did that really good was is Elizabeth Breitweister on.
Oh yeah, she's great.
Outcast with Kirkman.
Yeah,
those kind of textured cuts is something that I'm really fascinated with too. So I really like that, because when you leave your colorist with so much white, it could be, I'm assuming, pretty scary for them. Like,
like I'll see it. Sometimes I'll get the pages in development and they're flat, and I'm telling you, those little bit of textures in the background actually do add a lot of dimension. I can't do that. Whenever I cell shade myself, I always call it, I guess I call it cell shading for short, but whenever I do that cell shading, for me, I don't use any textures. I'm just like, cut this object, highlight, low light, mid light, maybe a shadow if I want, but also a flat shadow, And so whenever I need something colored, but I need it punched up, I send it to Mike and say, hey, do your little atmosphere stuff that I have no idea what to do with, And so he punches some stuff up when I need help.
Yeah, it looks great.
Just a fantastic book, and I'm really excited to read the entire thing. And I feel like we just kind of got to wet our whistles, or just get the appetite wet a little bit by getting to see just half of it. Did I just say wet my whistle? I should just go ahead and say I was on a 4-hour airplane flight yesterday, and I'm in a different time zone now than I was yesterday, and it's made me a little loopy.
And I was put under
on drugs.
I was put under anesthesia this morning and had a camera shoved down my throat. So that was fun. They expanded my esophagus. My esophagus had so much damage from acid reflux that it had like tightened up. So they put a balloon down there, and but I feel fully recovered. I don't know. Maybe I'm not. But if this is the strangest interview we've done, we're sorry.
Are you a fan of automatic drawing? This is an aside, but you're drawing where you just pick up a ballpoint pen and go. Like, have you looked at those automatic drawing videos?
Yeah, I use that.
I've been trying to crack those for years, dude. Like,
that's an assignment in all my classes. I assign my students that.
That's interesting, man. Because I'm going to ask him about that, because I was like getting obsessed about it. Years ago, smoked a little weed and thought I was going to do it, and do the automatic drawing thing. And I thought one night I had it. Like, I was just like letting my hand go and finding shapes, and but I can't do it. I guess I don't put the practice in, but when I see you draw, it reminds me of the automatic drawing. stuff I looked up online.
That's totally
So,
what it is. And it's because I can't pre-visualize like you. So if
Yeah.
I tried to see those forms and do it, it would be a mess. If I tried to imagine your big guy with the axe, it would be a mess. But if I just start making lines, it just makes itself. But yeah, I assign all my students in art appreciation class to do automatic drawing. Drawing 1, they do automatic. And
that's awesome.
go back. Do you know Austin Osman Spare?
I'm well, I might. I'm not good with names. So if it's a YouTube guy, I went on a deep dive with it. There was
he's the guy that wrote as far as I know, he's the first one that coined the term automatic drawing. And he wrote in like 1916, he wrote a
treatise,
a treatise on it. The Book of Automatic Drawing. And so I make my drawing 2 students read this, but automatic drawing is usually associated with like the Dada and the Surrealist artists. And they say Andre Breton or Andre Masson in 1924 started this. And it's like, bullshit. You have this book on record from 1916. So as far as I know,
is that published, or is that just like you say, you make your students pick it up? So it's
I just give them
on
a
Amazon?
PDF. You can get a copy on A-Books for $15. Go grab it before the
public domain.
Before this comes out. All right, let me see what's
1916 public domain.
Yeah.
Book of Automatic Drawing. I'm gonna buy it as soon as this ends.
Yeah, we've kind of butted up against this a couple times, but my sort of shorthand for these different styles is constructive versus responsive. And constructive drawing being more like an architect. Okay, what is it that I want to do? How can I plan it out with my mark making and essentially creating the thing, whether that's in your head or whatever, as opposed to responsive, like, okay, well, I've literally made a line. What does that line look like? What is it that I'm doing now? Or responding to the object that's in front of you. So in a weird kind of way, it seems like automatic drawing is sort of connected to other kinds of responsive drawing, like you're looking at a vase that's sitting on the table and you're going to draw the vase. That seems almost more related to automatic drawing than inventive or constructive drawing, where you're pulling it out of your,
What I love about it in a very technical sense is it's almost like everything's curling in line of action-y and on the good ones, I think. And I don't know if this one's informing this one. And then I don't know if your brain is like doing the thing where you're finding the shapes and constructing, but it's like I cannot wrap my mind around not visualizing. Like one time I hadn't slept in a while, smoked something I shouldn't have had, and it was happening. And it was like I was watching my hand draw, and it was the coolest thing. And I've been chasing that for years since. It was unbelievable. Like I am such a meat and potatoes, construct it, overthink it, construct it, overthink it. That is like my magic trick, dude. When I watch people do that, obviously Kim Jung-gi is a guy who can do it with a finished line, which is insane,
Yeah, but he's a hyper visualizer, I think, though. Like he's tracing up a picture, whereas to me, I feel like it's cheating. Like it's like, don't be impressed by that. Like what I'm chasing, what you're doing. Like you can see it in your head or have an idea and make it happen. Like to me, it's like cheating. I know enough about how to light a form that you make 3 lines and then you just say, okay, well, like there's shadow on this side and it starts to look round. And then to me, it's like, I don't know, probably because it's what I do. It just seems like
you might be like you're in that rare territory where you're the only one that can critique him, because I'm blown away by both of y'all. So they look equally amazing to me.
So you really want to freak yourself out, try automatic writing sometime. And that is a weird, exactly what you're saying. It's a weird mental place to get into, and there's definitely like shortcuts in terms of drugs and things like that. But if you can get yourself to write in that same kind of way, you can really surprise yourself, and not necessarily in positive ways.
yeah. That's interesting.
Well, and that's what I use it with for my students, because a lot of them don't think they can draw and they don't think they're creative. So it's just like, I don't like, it could just be a shit mess, but just do it. And like the thing I really like about it, and I think the reason why it was popping up in 1916 is it's a picture into the subconscious, right? Yeah. And like doodling is that too. it's basically just doodling for longer, a finished doodle. But you do enough of that and you start to realize what's hanging out in the back of your head, or like, because certain things, certain people are going to produce the same type of thing. And you do it with a class full of kids, and like the girls are all drawing flowers and things, and the guys are drawing, you know, bombs, and you just get a real peek into like what culture has stuffed into your head, and I get a peek at what the students have had stuffed in their head. And even like, I don't know, being in school, you guys both went to school, like I would just draw instead of taking notes.
Uh-huh.
Oh
And
yeah,
then-
I did that. I did that all the time. All my
so
margins.
did you go back at the end of the semester and look at them?
No, I
Oh,
never.
so I would
I never
always go
did.
back and I would be like, okay, that day I was in a good mood because it was like cartoony stuff. And that day I was in a bad mood because it's like this redneck with a mustache going like, suck a dick, you know? And like, it was a real clear picture into, I don't know. The other thing is try it with your eyes closed.
Right. Start it off that way. Yeah, that's a good.
Do the whole thing that way.
Randomness.
No, just like if you can visualize, like just trace your visual with your eyes closed.
I'll look terrible. I'll look like kids are drawing.
No, try it. You'll be surprised.
I can't take the ego shock of whatever comes out. I can't do it because
That's
I know
the
what
problem.
I know what the good ones look like, you know, and I don't have that. I know I don't have that. Whatever magic drawing that I can trick people into that I have, it comes from like construction, meat and potatoes, how-to books. It's not like coming out of the fucking ether like you or Kim Jung-ji or whatever. It doesn't come that way to me.
I
You
bet
know?
you can do it. Do like, but see the thing to get the ego out of the way, that's why I say close your eyes. Like you just got to put a constraint in place that gives you permission for it to be shitty. So if you
Yeah.
close your eyes and it's shitty, it's like, well, of course it was going to be shitty. My eyes were closed.
A constraint that I really liked that I used to do, you know, back when I could paint with oil, is like that was actually fun and had time. Was painting only on other people's paintings. So you've already gotten, you know, you've already gotten like a start. And so like for, you know, two semesters or whatever, it's like I'd only paint on the reject canvases that were already in, you know, in the room or given away or whatever. You got to find some kind of, get some kind of constraint, some kind of
when it worked for me the one time, I had been up for a long time drawing, so I was like in a mode, the lights were dim, and I was drawing on really big pads of graph paper. So I was doing all the shapes, but I think something about the graph paper like let me click perspective because I could start doing the background or something. It gave me some kind of plane to draw on that it worked, but I've never gotten back there. And it was like I woke my wife up. I'm like, look, it's working, you know. And she's like, you don't ever bring drugs into this house again, motherfucker. You know?
Try with your eyes closed and have someone describe something to you. So because I'm pretty insistent
awesome.
that I'm not a good visualizer. I'm trying to get better at it. So I closed my eyes and had my partner explain to me whatever she was seeing. And she was like, she wound up describing Moebius to me with no idea what it was, but she's describing like a lady with a sword riding a rat.
Dude, I can see that completely. I was going to say that's definitely somebody riding a rat at their armies.
That's like Anima from Inkall is what she was describing. Yeah. And then she described like a scene. And then I was trying to just, that was her like eating. Like,
yeah, I can see it, dude. These are great.
But those were all closed eyes. And so I
That's
found
incredible.
that super helpful. And then, getting stoned and like listening to music and like, you know, the music will paint like a picture kind of, and I'll try and keep up with the music. Cause that's another constraint, right? Like it's passing by and your eyes are closed. Of course it's going to look like shit. So try it and send us some.
I'll do it when I'm done with this. I'm gonna take a break and just relax and decompress, and I'm gonna try it again. So we'll see. I don't want to get too. So I interrupted your question about Ax-Wielder Jon to talk about the automatic drawing, what I'm really interested in. So I will answer your question with Ax-Wielder Jon. I've never pitched it. I wasn't going to pitch it. I knew I was going to make it either way. And I wasn't going to it wasn't beneath me to ask, because if I need to ask to get it published, I will. But I was not going to go somewhere and say, can I make this? I was going to make it. And I told my wife I was going to make it. My daughter, she was in the hospital. She was sick. She's better now. Everything's good. But she was in critical condition. We lived in the Ronald McDonald House for 2 months. I started working on this feverishly, came back like manic about it. And I knew it was going to be made. And if the second you go to a publisher or I'm not going to put myself in a position to be nervous about someone wanting this. I knew I was going to make it, and I wanted to make it my way. And I was very serious about it. And then, like, put your money where your mouth is. So then I sold stuff, did whatever I've had to do for the last year to fund it, to get it 100% complete by the time the campaign ends. And that's what we're doing. So I'm as serious about it as anything I've ever been. And I'm as excited about it, and you guys having me on and let me promote it and talk about it a little bit I can't thank you enough, because it's honestly the hardest part, trying to reach out and trying to get people to know about it. So what you guys are doing is awesome. And what I've seen of the show is great. And I was intimidated because you guys know a lot more about publishing and printing and lines and draw better than me as it is. So for you guys to want to ask me to be on to help me out means a lot. And so thank you.
I'm thrilled to death. I'll admit, like, I was already watching that this book was coming out, and I was like, I'm gonna order it, and then I'm gonna review it and tag him, and hopefully that'll start a conversation. So I was like, I'm really grateful, because it's something I was excited about and was like wanting to talk about already.
Let me just give you guys the real quick pitch. If you meant this all the way, if you made it all the way here, hopefully, you're not going to need the pitch. But let me just say, like, you've probably seen some of the preview images already, and you're thinking, well, that's a pretty badass thing. This is a very interesting, very intriguing kind of story that takes a lot of twists and turns, and not in a sort of, shocking for the sake of shocking kind of way, but in a sort of like inevitable, of course, that's where it went. And yet you didn't know. Until it happens, which is a very satisfying reading experience, and really incredibly sophisticated artwork, very, very visually exciting, and doesn't just want to slam your head into the desk the entire time. You get to breathe between each slam into the desk, which I really appreciate. And Nick, I mean, what a tremendous book. I'm really excited about it, and I'm really hoping that it's a tremendous success. And I hope that we're going to have a shelf full of these books sometime in the next couple of years.
Tell us.
I appreciate it, guys. I really do.
How do people support it? Because you're using.
Okay, so I'm using a new platform for it. It's called Zoop. The reason why I went with them is because they have fulfillment lined up already, and will negotiate and deal with printers. So I wanted readers to know that the book is complete, and I'm not stuffing these envelopes. I already have an outside company doing that for me. Mm-hmm. And if you go there and sign up for the mailing list, you can go to Ax-Wielder.com or go to Zoop and find it on there. And everyone, and if you want to show them, that'd be really good. Everyone on there who signs up on the mailing list and purchases something is going to get a Marvel Masterpiece card of the first cover, which is Ax-Wielder Jon by Dos Pastoras. And
you want me to go to Zoop or your website?
It's in the Dropbox folder, because the Dos Pastoras cover is not. It probably just showed up today online, and if you look for it.
Oh, you want to look at the cover? I thought you wanted to go look at how the website works.
You can go. The website's fine. It just has an email list on there, and
if you sign up for the email, I have the cover pulled up.
Oh, that's fine. If you sign up for the email list, it's if you go there, then what we're going to do is make a Marvel Masterpiece card out of this horrific drawing painting here by Dos Pastoras, which is hand painted by the Spanish master himself. And he's worked at Metal Hurlant, and he's worked with Jodorowsky on Kostaka, and done a bunch of stuff. And he's a guy I wanted to do the painted hardcovers. And if you want to show the other one off too, so every good guy needs a good bad guy. So that's Horus, who we've seen when we zoomed in before. That'll be the third volume hardcover. And then my favorite of the three is Lord Fang. And with Lord Fang's design, he's got a crazy twist. But I always had this idea for spiders for eyes. So if you zoom in there, he's got those spiders for eyes, and I love that. So that'll be the second one. Ooh. Yeah. So his irises are the back dots on the Black Widow. Yeah. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to make one card for anyone who signs up for the pre-campaign sign up. So I'm just going to make a bunch and give them to everyone on the email list. and then we'll do like a set of 3 that you can purchase on the campaign. But obviously buy the book. That's just an extra little thing on the side. So yeah, those are the paintings I'm going to be staring at for the next 3 years as I finish this 3 hardcovers off.
Yeah,
the plan.
they're amazing. And thank you for letting us show them, because I saw them and you were like, I don't know.
Oh no. So this is actually an exclusive. Like Bleeding Cool got the exclusive for the cover 1 reveal, and that came out Saturday today. And I don't know when this will drop, maybe a couple days. But the other 2 nobody's seen.
You hear that, Rich Johnson?
Yeah, we got those. Nobody's seen them, and we got them. I didn't know he was going to do them. Like, it took a few months to get the first one, and he said he was in between gigs. And Jose Villarrubia, the colorist, is his rep, and he said, "Hey," he messaged me one day. He said, "Hey, Dos Pastores," his real name is Julio. He said, "Hey, Julio's done with the paintings," and I'm like, "No way!" And so I was like, "Get out of here!" Then I was like, the sad thing is, I got the juice off of it already. I'm like, it's not coming again for 3 years, you know. But I was like, oh God, it was like so overwhelming. And I was like, this is amazing. And I want to show them off so bad, but I can't. I'm too much of a kid. I can't keep a secret. I got to show it off. So I'm happy you guys are showing it off now. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give the foil treatment and do a little Marvel Masterpiece cards for all 3 of them. And so I can show them off for the campaign. So we're going to show them off anyway soon, but you guys got the exclusive on all 3. So
fantastic.
Thank you. They're amazing. Totally amazing. So when they go to sign up for the email, they're going to the AX-WIELDERJON.com.
You can go to Ax-Wielder Jon, but you know, some people will misspell John. So I bought the Ax-Wielder URL too. So just Ax-Wielder, but it's zoop.gg/Ax-Wielder, but just www.axwielder.com will take you to the page. The URL takes you to the Zoop page. And what it is a pre-sign up. If you put your email in, you'll just be notified on day 1 that, hey, the campaign's live. And we're trying to build that. Obviously, it's super important for crowdfunding to get your email list built up. And so as a perk today with the Bleeding Cool article, we announced that I was going to give a free trading card away to whoever makes a purchase of the campaign. So I'm going to print, a bunch of those out for everyone who's at least semi-interested in the product. And then if you make a purchase, you will have a free signed trading card in your with your purchase. So I hate selling stuff, so don't ask me more questions about this.
No. We'll put the link in the down belows, and everyone can follow it. And then I'm sure people should jump on your Instagram too to see more updates and see
Instagram would be the best. For some reason, Twitter's throttled. Like I got a blue check mark over there or whatever, but it's weird. It's like I'm getting like no reaction, but Instagram is like getting a lot of feedback. So I'm kind of posting on Instagram more. I used to never post on Instagram, and I started to a couple months ago. And it's that's probably where I'll post most of my updates. So yeah, if you guys follow me on there, I'm just Nick Pitarra on Instagram. And yeah, so there's the sign up page. And yeah, you'll be put your email in to notify. We got some great pull quotes. We got obviously Frank Quietly did it for me. He's kind of a friend now. We got a couple different great people said some really nice stuff about it. So I'm excited.
You got like Sienkiewicz, Jay Lee.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. We got Bill Sienkiewicz. I made a trailer for it too. There's a trailer link there if you guys really want to drag things down. But it's super over the top. Yeah. And you'll see it's all colored now.
I like how it has some parallax shifting on it too. That's cool.
Oh yeah. I decided to it's I learned a little bit of technology and put it on everything to make it look terrible.
What were you using to make this?
It's free. It's a app called CapCut, and they have like some light 3D programming that you can do it all on your phone. So I made it all on my phone. And since a lot of this is happening sequentially, I just took the panels out and lightly did 3D programming on them, and obviously swung left or right or whatever, and added some whatever. It was all a phone on my app that, and I know it's going to age terribly. It aged terribly the second I uploaded it, but it's not at all sophisticated. But I was like, it looks kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's not bad for free.
This looks
and
great.
I just whipped it out. So. Yeah, so I made that. And
there it is. You got Jeff Darrow, Frank Quietly, Jonathan Hickman, Bill Sienkiewicz, Jay Lee. They're all saying you got to buy this book. I mean, you got to go buy this book.
That's what you got to do.
Hey, I'd appreciate it. And if you can't, you can't. But it's a cool book. I put everything I have into it, so that's all I can say. I appreciate anyone who's even listened to this interview, and I appreciate you guys for having me on.
Well,
It means a lot.
Thank
Thanks
you
so
very
much,
much,
man.
Nick.
Yeah.
Really do appreciate it. So go out, buy Ax-Wielder Jon. While you're at it, pick up a copy of Strange Death of Alex Raymond. And after that, there's a little button. Oh, there it is. That was not enough time for us to appreciate that cover. After that, hit that subscribe button. We really do appreciate it. And tell your friends if you enjoyed this particular interview or if you want to hear more. Thanks, guys. Thanks again, Nick. Really do appreciate it. And hopefully we'll get to talk to you again soon, okay?
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You want to see all these books? Smash that subscribe button and the like button and the bell, and then you get them.